Let's set our rendering to viewport material. So now we can see how all this, for example, looks. Okay, very nice. Shift A, make a plane. In edit mode, S, scale this up. Select this back edge, E and Z, drop this to there, select this one, go to here. Very good. Okay, so now we would like to have a nice rendering representation of this chair. How could we easily do this? We need some lights. So add light and, for example, point. There we are. Go to move this up, go to here. Yeah, but nothing happens. We added a light. Okay, maybe it's a wrong light. Go add light, area, bring this up. Also here nothing happens. So this is because we're just in material preview. But watch what happens when we turn this on. Now we're actually in render mode. Here's my point light. Here's my area light. So how does all this stuff actually work? Good. So let's select both lights, press X, and we delete them. And let's see first what we have here. There are a few ground elements we need to cover first. When we click on this render property icon, here we have render engine Eevee. There are various render engines. Eevee is what we will use a lot, very fast. Not 100% realistic, but blazing fast. Very good for actually most of the work or as preview. Then we have Cycles, which is very realistic, but with realism it simply is slower. We want to turn on this screen space reflection here. This, if you notice here on the chair, we started seeing a reflection of this wall on it. Okay. Let's go to world. And this is our environment. In here we have a color. So let's keep this at maybe white, nice and bright. And then we can play with the strength. If the strength is at 0, it's pitch black. If the strength is set to 10, it's totally overexposed. Let's set this to 0.1. Just a little bit of background light maybe. Very good. If you're sitting in a room during the day, kind of like right now it's winter, there's no sunlight, but there is light inside a room. That's kind of like indirect lighting. The light rays are scattered through the clouds, etc., bouncing off the snow surface, coming through the open windows, bouncing off the walls, illuminating our interior spaces. That's how this works. Okay. Now we would like to add a simple light to this. So let's go to add light and point. Looks kind of cool actually, how this light creates drop shadows onto this wall. Let's move this one up and maybe to here. Let's talk about the individual lights and what they do. It's actually very simple. So this is a point light. Point light basically means, well, it's like a light bulb. From a point 360 degree, this emits simply light. Then we have the sun. Well, it's the sun basically. And R and X, this is more like a direct light. Pay attention to how linear basically the shadow is. There's no, how could I say that? The shadow doesn't get bigger or smaller based on where the light is. With this, you see how the shadow can get bigger when it covers more the object, or get smaller when the light is further away from the object. Sunlight is very good for obviously simulating a sun. Then we have spotlight. As the name says, creates a spot. Pretty simple. And then we have area light. This is a light source we will work with a lot. Okay, so here, let's select this point light and delete it. There's our area light. The area light is like a light box. Think about it as a diffuse surface that illuminates light in a very soft way. So you get soft illuminations and no harsh, sharp shadows. That is why they are so nice and useful. How can we manipulate lights? Or here, this area light. I can go to this corner and scale this up or scale this down. You notice how the shadow is like very crisp now. And I try to undo this step. I might have to zoom in a little bit more there to make this bigger. And you see how the light is actually much softer now. Because from here you can see the left edge and the right edge, what it can see behind on the wall, behind the chair, and illuminates it. So this is the reason why we get a rather soft shadow. When this is so tiny, and then we can see it kind of like what it only can see. So via this, we can adjust the size of an area light. The bigger the area light in relationship to the object, the softer the shadows, but also the more uniform the illumination, or softer. The smaller the area light, the sharper the shadow, but also the more pointy the illumination. Now to play more with a light, we can go to here. There we have point, sun, spot, area. We can play with the color. We will set this actually just to white for the moment. We can play with the power, so make it soft or make it very strong. Keep this, we don't talk about this right now. Shape, yeah, we have a square or rectangle, disc or ellipse. Rectangle is very useful when, well, we want to have kind of like a light line or something. Pay attention to how beautiful this highlight changed. It's a square now, disc, an ellipse, no. Okay. The light also has a light direction. You see here this line, that is the light direction. So when I rotate this light, there we can see what it only illuminates. We also have here this dot, which we can use to rotate the light. So, or not to rotate, to make it look at something, but as you can see, the light also rotates. And this is something I very often don't really like, which is why when I need to position a light, let's say we would like one light to look from the left, one from the right, one from the top. So let's set this up. So here we put one light maybe to there. I needed to zoom in a little bit so I didn't go over here. The size we set to 20 inches. Very good. Then Shift D and escape. We move this one down, move this to here. Now this is the y-axis. So here, 90 degrees. Very good. Bring this one down. Shift D and escape. Bring one over. Minus 90. So the opposite direction. Very good. Okay. let's move this down a little bit. So here we have 3 lights. The top one we could call area top. Then this is area left and area right. One very common way when we working with lights is just place them, play around, and then see how does this actually look like. Now, for example, from here, this is quite charming. The shadow area and light comes from the right side. I see a little bit of a reflection on there. Here, don't really see the light on it. I have the highlights here that can be maybe a little bit more distracting. Okay. So what we set up right now, and this is absolutely not optimized, but again, this is just an introduction video, is kind of like what some people would call a 3-key lighting. Now you have like a fill light on top, a key light that's kind of strong, and then another fill light. With fill lights also what very often they mean is these are much, much softer. So maybe 2, so that this one here, that is really generating the contrast. From the beginning, what is very important, and that's a very good tip when you work with lights, be aggressive with the contrast between the light strengths. This is 20, these are 2, so they're kind of like 1/10 of it. These are rather soft, as you can see. We can also, for example, turn the light off for the world, so we can only now take a look at and check how is this light working. And then maybe put this back on. A little bit of extra light. Okay, what else could we talk about in the beginning? The position of the lights. Really, there are a few rules. The position of the lights don't really matter, but it really comes down to what you want to do. From where do you want light to come? From where would you like to have a little bit of fill light? The color of the light can be of use, the strength of the light. You don't want to have 10 lights. 2 lights could be fine. Here I have 3, simply also from a light for the top, left and right. Lights can totally move around. Now this is all really based on how you want to design your shot. Basically, what I teach you is not just quick rendering with keyshot or so, but more really thinking about 3D rendering as digital photography. We want to design a shot. We want to explain our product. When we select a light, go to shadow and turn this contact shadow on. You see actually what happens there at the ground. This can be quite useful. Here, yeah, we don't really need it necessarily. This is actually a strong light, so it creates strong shadows. This is a rather very soft light, so it doesn't really create very strong shadows, so this is actually fine. The contact shadow, as you can see, feels kind of like this space there where the object touches the ground. Based on the view, there are some interesting artifacts happening. Don't worry about this too much. Eevee, again, is something, this render engine we will use for very quick renderings. Let's save this video. And then when we really like something and we want to have a better result, then we could go to something like cycles. So you see the result is very comparable, just slower, and will be at the end more realistic. Very good. Okay, so for an introduction into how to work with lights, I think this covers most of the basics. We will go more into detail what we can do with all these functions here, but I think at this point now you know different light types we have, how to add, scale, position, rotate a light, set up the value, the strength, move those around, adjust the size and the shape. And honestly, that is really the most important tool to work with lights anyway.